The door slams so hard the metal groans. Zion barely has time to pull his hand back before it catches his fingers. He spins around, and there he is, Ravik Romano, 6'4" of controlled fury standing between Zion and the parking garage exit like a wall that just decided to breathe. One arm is braced against the doorframe, the other hand is locked on the handle, blocking it completely. Zion's bag is still on his shoulder. The resignation letter is already upstairs on Kalen's desk. 12 minutes ago, everything was in order. The plan was clean. Walk out, disappear, go home to the boys. Now this, you're not going. Ravik's voice doesn't rise, doesn't shake, doesn't do anything dramatic. It's just flat, like a statement about weather, which is somehow worse than screaming. Zion straightens his spine. For years of working for the Romano pack taught him one thing fast. Show fear and you become prey. Move, Mr. Romano. Ravik doesn't move. He tilts his head slightly. Studying. The fluorescent lights in the underground garage hum overhead. The smell of concrete and motor oil fills the air. And underneath all of it something shifts. Something Zion has been chemically suppressing for 4 years starts leaking through. His suppressant patch is 3 days overdue for a change. He knows it. And from the way Ravik's nostrils flare just barely, Ravik knows something too. Your resignation was typed at 6:47 this morning, Ravik says, before your shift started. Zion doesn't answer. You've been planning this for a while. 2 weeks, Zion says carefully. Standard notice. Check the letter. I don't care about the letter. The elevator behind Ravik opens. 2 more men step out. Kalen Romano, quiet, watchful, hands in his pockets like he has all the time in the world. Ravik Romano, younger, sharper, head already tilting like a dog catching a frequency no one else hears. 3 alphas. 3 rulers of everything that happens above and below Chicago's surface. All standing between Zion and the exit. The air changes. That is the only way to describe it. Thickens. Presses down. It carries something old and territorial that has nothing to do with Cologne. Alpha instinct. Raw. Real. Focused directly on Zion. You've been driving for us for 2 years, Kalen says from across the garage. His voice is thoughtful. Not aggressive. Somehow that's more unsettling. You know our schedules, our properties, our routes. Pause. And you never asked for a raise. Varric speaks next, softer than the others, like he's talking to himself. You never pushed for more access either. Another pause. Most people who stay quiet that long. He lets it hang there. Zion shifts his weight. 1 inch toward the door. Calculating. Ravik's arm adjusts, blocking the inch Zion just moved. Without even looking. Pack coordination. Automatic. Like breathing. I've got a family matter, Zion says. Personal. It has nothing to do with. Why do you smell like our bloodline? Varric. Quiet. Steady. And completely devastating. The garage goes silent except for the hum of the lights. Zion's chest tightens. His lungs forget what they're supposed to do. Varric takes 1 step forward. Just 1. I've been trying to place it for weeks, he says. Every time you drove us. Every time you were in the same room. He stops. It's been right there. Under the chemical block. His eyes drop to Zion's neck. Right where the suppressant patch sits beneath his collar. But right now it's not blocked. Zion presses back against the door. The cold metal hits his shoulder blades. And Ravik, still not moving, leans just slightly closer. Hi viewers. Have you ever had to keep a secret so big that staying close to the truth was the only way to protect it? Drop your answer in the comments below. I want to know. 3 pairs of eyes. All waiting. Zion opens his mouth. Closes it. Because there is no version of the next sentence that doesn't detonate everything he has built for 4 years. There is no safe answer. There is no exit. There is only this garage. These 3 men. And a secret that has been running out of time since the moment he took this job. His phone buzzes in his pocket. He already knows who it is before he looks. It's Ryden, his oldest son. The one who looks exactly like Ravik Romano. 4 years and 7 months ago, Chicago smelled like money and cologne and something electric in the air that made the back of Zion's neck prickle the moment he walked through the Genesis Foundation gala entrance. He was not supposed to be there long. His job was logistics, vendor check-ins, catering schedules. He had a clipboard and a headset and a very specific list of things to confirm before 9 p.m. so he could go home and sleep. The Genesis Foundation Gala was a charity event. High-ceiling venue, open bar, string quartet playing something nobody was really listening to. Chicago's most powerful people in formal wear, doing the polite dance of being seen. Zion did not belong in that world. He knew it. He had always known it. He was 23 years old and completely focused on the job. At first the heat felt like stress. That tight pressure behind the eyes that comes from moving fast through a crowded room. He loosened his collar, drank some water, kept moving. By 8:15 it was something else entirely. His skin felt wrong. Too hot. Hypersensitive to every brush of fabric and every passing body and every shift in temperature. The room tilted. Not enough for anyone else to see. Just enough for Zion to grab the edge of a service cart and breathe. He had never experienced a heat cycle before. Not like that. Not sudden. Not violent. Not without the slow build that should have given him days of warning. It didn't make sense. It still doesn't. Because what Zion did not know yet was that someone in that building had made it happen on purpose. Security footage, reviewed 14 months later by a private investigator Zion hired with money he did not have, showed 2 Genesis biotech lab technicians moving through the service corridors at 7:48 p.m. They were carrying something. Small cases. Clinical. They accessed the HVAC controls on sublevel 2. They were in and out in under 4 minutes. At 8:03 p.m., the ventilation system in the east wing of the venue began dispersing something that was not on any catering manifest or safety certification. A synthesized omega heat accelerant, designed specifically to interact with both omega biology and alpha instinct markers simultaneously. Zion didn't know any of that at the time. What he knew was that the room became impossible. Too loud, too bright, too full of a pressure he couldn't name. A staff member, he never learned her name, guided him quietly toward a corridor, said there was a medical suite, said he could sit down, get some air. He followed her because his body was no longer entirely his to control. The room she brought him to was clean, cool, private. There were already 3 men inside. He didn't recognize them then. He knows exactly who they were now. The memory of that night exists in pieces, not full scenes. Fragments, like photographs someone dropped and only partially recovered. A voice that was low and careful, a hand steadying him against a wall, the feeling of being seen completely and not being able to look away. And then nothing. He woke up alone. 7 hours had passed. The venue was quiet. Pre-dawn gray came through the frosted window. His clothes were folded on a chair. A glass of water sat on the table beside him. No note, no explanation. He told himself it was a medical event, an allergic reaction, something in the food. He told himself that for 3 weeks. Until a doctor in a clinic on the south side of the city looked at him across a desk with careful, measured eyes and said words that rearranged every single thing Zion had planned for his life. The results are consistent. A pause. You're carrying triplets. Zion sat very still. The kind of still that happens when the brain refuses to process what the ears just delivered. 3 separate heartbeats already forming in a body that had no business doing this. No partner. No plan. No framework for any of it. 3. And somewhere in Chicago 3 alpha men were going about their lives having no idea. No idea at all. The apartment was small. 2 bedrooms. 3rd floor walk-up. The kind of building where the radiator bangs all winter and the super shows up whenever he wants to and the windows face a brick wall. Zion picked it because it was 47 minutes outside of Chicago by train, and because it cost less than anything closer, and because distance from that city felt like the closest thing to safety available. He painted the 2nd bedroom pale blue on a Thursday night in the 8th month. Alone. with a roller brush and a drop cloth and a playlist that he kept replaying so he wouldn't have to think. The boys came 4 weeks early, which nobody warned him was typical for triplet alpha pregnancies. Which nobody warned him was going to happen in 3 hours with minimal warning on a Wednesday afternoon. Raiden came first. 7 minutes later, Solon. For minutes after that, Cairo. 3 separate personalities announced themselves before the hospital blankets were even settled. Raiden looked at Zion and went quiet, watchful, like he was already deciding whether the situation was safe. Solon looked at the ceiling, blinked slowly, like he was already somewhere else in his mind. Cairo grabbed Zion's finger immediately and pulled, hard, with a grip that made the nurse raise both eyebrows. "That one," she said, "is going to be a handful." She had no idea. The first year was pure survival. Formula rotations and sleep schedules that never actually worked and 3 sets of lungs that could generate an incredible amount of noise at 2 in the morning. Zion's savings drained faster than he expected. He picked up remote work, logistics consulting, invoicing companies at odd hours while the boys slept in shifts that never quite lined up. He did not think about Chicago. He did not search for any names. He told himself the boys' biology was the only origin story they needed to know right now. 3 small alpha pups being raised by an omega parent outside the city. That was the story. The whole story. Until Raiden turned 2.5 and began doing something that made Zion's blood run cold every single time it happened. Raiden would position himself between Zion and the door whenever a stranger came to the apartment. Not coached. Not taught. Just instinct. Pack protection. Automatic and precise and identical to something Zion had seen in exactly 3 other people. Solon started asking questions at 3 years old that were too specific for a 3-year-old. Not why is the sky blue questions. Different ones. Quiet ones. Delivered at bath time or during dinner when the other 2 were distracted. "Papa, why do we have to move if anyone asks where we live?" Zion told him it was a safety rule. Solon looked at him for a long moment, then nodded, like he was filing the answer away to revisit later. Cairo broke 3 windows. Not at the same time, but still. By age for the boys knew 3 things absolutely. They were safe with Papa. They did not tell strangers their last name, and if anyone ever made Papa look scared, they were to go to the back room and lock the door. Rules Zion hated having. Rules Zion had no choice about, because the Romano name was not quiet. Even from 47 minutes away on a train, it reached him. News articles, business coverage, rumors that moved through logistics industry circles like weather systems. Chicago's most powerful pack. The Romano triplets, running the city's underground economy and half of its legitimate business infrastructure simultaneously. And Zion's boys smelled like them. Not a little. Completely. He changed suppressant brands twice trying to mask it from himself. It didn't work. The scent markers were genetic. Deep. The kind that don't wash out. One afternoon Raiden climbed into Zion's lap while he was working and picked up his work phone. Zion grabbed it back fast. Too fast. Raiden looked at the screen before Zion got it out of his hands. The Romano Group logistics portal. A profile photo Zion had never successfully avoided loading. Raiden stared at it, then looked up at Zion. His 4-year-old face completely serious. "Papa." "Yes. Why do we smell like the men on your work phone?" Zion put the phone face down on the table. He did not answer for a very long time. The Romano job started as a calculation. Not desperation. Not sentiment. Pure math. The boys were 2 years old when Zion accepted the position. Private driver for the Romano Group executive team. Rotating schedule. High pay. Benefits package that included medical coverage Zion had not been able to afford independently for 18 months. He told himself it was temporary. He told himself proximity was protection. Because here is the logic that kept him moving forward every single morning. The Romano pack's enemies were not going to target someone already inside the Romano orbit. The boys were safer with their father employed by the most feared pack in Chicago than they would be with him piecing together remote contracts from a building with bad locks. That was the calculation. Temporary, practical, controlled. 2 years later, he was still there. Because the calculation held. And because leaving turned out to be harder than arriving. Not emotionally. He told himself firmly it was not emotional. It was logistical. Consistent income. Reliable schedule. The boys were in preschool now. Stability mattered. But Ravik had started noticing things. It began small. The way it always does before it doesn't. 6 months into the job, Ravik began requesting Zion specifically for early morning runs instead of rotating among the other drivers. No explanation given. Romano men rarely explained preferences. 3 months after that, Ravik started talking during the drives. Not about business. About small things. Traffic patterns. Chicago architecture. A restaurant he'd been to the night before. The way the lake looked in November. Zion answered in the minimum words required and kept his eyes on the road. But Ravik kept talking. And Zion kept noticing that Ravik never talked to the other drivers at all. Kalen was different. Kalen watched. He had the specific stillness of a person who processes information at a different speed than everyone around him. During drives, he sat in the back with his tablet and his phone and said nothing. But his eyes moved. Constantly. Zion felt them. Every time. Varric was the youngest. The most instinct-driven. He had walked past Zion in a corridor on Zion's 3rd day of work, stopped, turned around, and stared at him for a full 4 seconds before continuing on without a word. That had been 2 years ago. Varric still did it occasionally. Zion had learned to breathe through it. The suppressant patches managed most of it. Omega biology under chemical suppression reads as beta to most alphas doing a casual scan. It wasn't perfect. Nothing was perfect. But it was enough for a hallway or a vehicle interior or a brief interaction. What it was not enough for was sustained proximity. And 2 years of daily sustained proximity was a long time. Kalen ran a security review of all non-management staff 8 weeks ago. Standard procedure. The Romano group did it every 18 months. Background checks. Financial flags. Residency verification. Zion had prepared for it. He thought he had prepared enough. The gaps in his records were explainable. A residential relocation. A period of freelance work with inconsistent documentation. Medical records from a clinic that had since closed. Individually explainable. Together they formed a shape. Kalen was very good at seeing shapes. Zion was driving Ravik back from a waterfront meeting when his work phone buzzed with an internal message. He read it at a red light. HR has flagged an anomaly in your personnel file. Please report to Kalen Romano at your earliest convenience. Zion put the phone down, kept driving, kept breathing. That night he typed the resignation letter. He spent 6 days convincing himself it was the right move. Clean exit. No confrontation. Leave the letter. Walk out. Disappear back to the boys before anyone had a reason to push further. The plan was clean. It did not account for Ravik Romano standing at the parking garage door like a decision that had already been made. And it did not account for Kalen's voice. Quiet. Measured. Delivered like a report being filed. Our driver has been hiding something for 4 years. He had said it to his brothers 3 days before Zion submitted the letter. Zion only found that out later. By then it was already too late. The parking garage is cold. The kind of cold that comes through concrete and settles in the chest. Zion is still against the door. Ravik is still in front of him. Kalen has moved to the left, 3 feet back, watching without expression. Varric has moved to the right, flanking, instinctive, clean, coordinated without a single word passing between them. Pack behavior, automatic as breathing. I already told you, Zion says. His voice is steadier than it has any right to be. I'm a beta. Medical records are on file with HR. Check them. Varric shakes his head slowly. No beta smells like that. Like what? Like pack. Silence drops between them like something heavy. Kalen pulls his hands from his pockets. Unhurried. Synthetic suppressants work on scent markers up to about 70% of standard output. he says, almost conversational. The patch on your neck is past its replacement window. He pauses. We can smell the gap. Zion doesn't answer, because he has no answer that works here. You're an Omega, Varric says. Not a question. Just a fact being placed on a table. Zion looks at the door, looks at Ravik, looks at the distance between himself and any possible exit and understands that distance is not workable right now. What I am, Zion says carefully, is a private person with a personal situation that has nothing to do with this company. It stopped being just about the company, Ravik says. The moment your scent hit my system, there it is. The thing Zion has been dreading for 2 years. Not accusation, not suspicion, something worse. Recognition. Ravik's jaw tightens slightly. You've been close to us for 2 years. Under chemical suppression the entire time. He exhales through his nose. That's not a coincidence. That's a decision. A lot of Omegas suppress, Zion says. In professional environments. Yes. Kalen again. Still calm. But the level of suppression you've been maintaining is not standard workplace suppression. That's concealment. A pause. From us specifically. The fluorescent light above them buzzes once. Settles. Zion's hands are cold. If you're trying to suggest that Why did you take this job? Ravik asks. Straight. Direct. No warning. I needed the income. There are 100 driving jobs in Chicago. This one paid well. This one put you next to 3 Alpha Pack leaders every day. Zion says nothing. Ravik moves. Not toward Zion. Just shifts his weight forward. The change is small. The effect is not. The air between them compresses. I'm not going to hurt you, Ravik says. And the strange thing, the thing that makes Zion's chest do something inconvenient, is that it's completely believable. That's not why I'm leaving. Then tell me why. Zion closes his eyes for half a second. 4 years of math. 4 years of patches and careful language and driving these men through a city that belongs to them while carrying their most important secret in a 2-bedroom apartment 47 minutes away. 4 years of a calculation that always had an expiration date. And here it is. You want the truth, Zion says. Yes. The truth is going to change everything. I know. You don't. Ravik looks at him. Steady. Waiting. Zion breathes. Once. You have sons. The garage goes completely still. Not the stillness of disbelief. The stillness of something enormous landing and the ground taking a second to figure out how to hold it. Ravik does not move. Kalen goes very still. Varric makes a sound. Small. Low. Not quite a word. The silence stretches. And then Kalen reaches into his jacket. Pulls out a tablet. Turns the screen toward Zion. A security photo. Clean. Professionally captured. Timestamp from 46 hours ago. 3 small boys walking out of a preschool on the south side of the city. Winter coats. 2 backpacks between them because Cairo refuses to wear his. Ryden is holding the door for his brothers. Solon is looking at something on the sidewalk. All 3 of them carry the kind of posture that does not come from being taught. Comes from bloodline. Kalen's voice is very quiet. How old are they? Zion looks at the photo. Looks at his sons in high definition on a screen held by their biological father. And understands that the calculation is over. Every version of it. Every backup plan. Every exit route. Gone. Because Kalen Romano does not ask questions he doesn't already have partial answers to. And from the way all 3 men are looking at the screen right now, they already know. Comment below. If you found out someone had been keeping your children from you for 4 years, what would your first move be? Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about it. 3 boys. On a screen. In a parking garage. And nobody says a word for a full 15 seconds. That matters. Because these are men who run negotiations worth 8 figures. Men who do not hesitate. Men who built an empire on fast decisions and faster execution. And right now not one of them can speak. Varric is the first to move. He takes 1 step toward the tablet. Then stops. Like his legs made a decision his brain hasn't approved yet. His eyes are locked on the image. The three small figures in winter coats. The one holding the door. The one looking at the ground. The one with no backpack who is clearly already walking ahead of everyone else. Varek's jaw shifts. Something moves through his face that has no name in professional language. Ravik exhales. Slow. Controlled. The exhale of a man who is choosing not to react the way every instinct in his body is telling him to react. How old? Kalen says again. Not louder. Just clearer. Zion looks at the photo one more time. His boys. His whole life in 3 winter coats. Raiden who checks every exit in every room before he sits down. Solon who takes apart problems like puzzles before breakfast. Cairo who launched himself off the top bunk last Tuesday and laughed on the way down. 4. Zion says. The word lands like something physical. Because 4 means the timeline is exact. 4 means there is no other explanation. 4 means this conversation stopped being theoretical the moment Kalen turned that screen around. Ravik closes his eyes. 1 second. 2. When he opens them, something has shifted behind them. Not rage. Not grief. Something much more focused than either of those things. You've been inside our organization for 2 years, he says. Yes. Driving us. Living 47 minutes from here. With our children. He pauses on that word. Children. Like he's hearing himself say it for the first time and checking whether it's real. Yes, Zion says. And you were going to walk out today. I was trying to protect them. From us. Zion looks directly at Ravik. From everything. Including you. Including this. Including what happens to children who get pulled into a world like yours before they even know what that world is. Silence. Kalen speaks. Still measured. Still quiet. Like a man who has already started building a response before the sentence in front of him finishes. You raised 3 alpha heirs alone. Outside a pack. Without pack infrastructure or medical support or... I know what I did without. That's not a criticism. Zion blinks. It's a fact, Kalen says. And facts matter right now more than anything else in this conversation. He slides the tablet back into his jacket. His eyes move to his brothers. Something passes between them. Fast. Wordless. The kind of communication that only exists between people who have been pack-bonded since birth. Varek hasn't looked away from the spot where the screen was. His voice is very soft when he finally speaks. Those are our heirs. Not a question. Not an accusation. Just the truth sitting down in the room. Ravik turns slowly toward Zion. And his voice, when it comes, is lower than anything he has said in the last 10 minutes. What are their names? Zion's chest does something complicated. Because that question, that one specific question, is not what he expected from an alpha whose world just got turned completely sideways. He expected demands, commands. He got a father asking a name. Raiden, Zion says. A breath. Solon. Another. Cairo. Varek makes a sound. Just a sound. But it breaks something open in the garage that had been very carefully sealed for 4 years. And before anyone can say another word, the ground floor entry alarm erupts. The sound is not a warning. It's a crash. Metal on concrete. Something heavy moving through the barrier at the garage entrance at speed. Not an accident. Too deliberate. Too fast. The lights in the entry tunnel flash red. Emergency override. Ravik moves first. One hand on Zion's arm. Back. Away from the door. Toward the interior wall. The motion is not rough. But it is not optional. Kalen already has his phone out. Varek has already turned toward the sound. His posture changes completely. Gone is the man who was standing still with grief in his eyes. What's standing there now is something older than grief. Something wired for exactly this. A black SUV punches through the security barrier. The crash bar folds. The vehicle keeps moving. It stops hard at the bottom of the ramp, angled across 2 lanes. Doors open before the engine cuts. For men. All moving with professional precision. Dark tactical gear. No insignia. earpieces. The kind of men who do not improvise. The first shots are not aimed at anyone. They hit the overhead lighting. 1 strip. 2. The garage goes half dark. That's important. That is a tactical choice. This is not a robbery and it is not random. Someone planned this for low visibility. Kalen is already on his phone. Quiet. 1 sentence to private security. Then he pockets it and drops into a position behind the nearest vehicle. Ravik pulls Zion hard to the left. Behind a column. Stay here. Zion opens his mouth. Ravik's eyes cut to him. Stay. Zion stays. The next 40 seconds are the kind of controlled violence that looks completely different in real life than it does anywhere else. No wasted movement. No shouting. The Romano brothers move through the garage like they have done this before. Because they have. Varek takes the 2 men coming around the left flank. Fast. Precise. No hesitation. Kalen handles the communication. Feeds positioning to the security team that is now coming down from the upper floors. Ravik takes the lead pair directly. It is not a long fight. It is, however, a loud one. By the time the Romano security team reaches sublevel 2, the 4 attackers are on the ground. Not dead. Contained. Ravik does not kill people in parking garages unless he absolutely has to. There are rules about that. The garage goes quiet. The smell of concrete dust and motor oil and adrenaline sits heavy in the air. Zion is still behind the column. His hands are pressed flat against the surface behind him. He is not shaking. That surprises him. He thought he would be shaking. Ravik comes back around the column and looks at him. Checks him. Eyes moving fast from head to foot. Making sure. You're okay. It is not quite a question. I'm fine. Ravik nods. Turns. Varek is crouching beside the nearest attacker. Checking the earpiece. The gear. The hands. He looks up. These are extraction specialists. Not muscle. Not local. Specialists. Someone sent a professional team, Kalen says. He is reading something on his phone. Face neutral. They weren't after us. He looks at Zion. They were after you. Zion goes very still. Because that means someone already knew. Not just about him. About the boys. Ravik reads the realization on Zion's face before it finishes forming. The children, Ravik says. Low. Certain. And then one of the downed attackers. Still conscious, zip-tied, face against the concrete. Speaks into his earpiece. He doesn't know anyone can still hear it feed through. His voice is flat. Reporting. Target confirmed. Omega parent located. Ravik turns. His eyes find Zion. And for the first time in this entire night, fear arrives in his face. Not for himself. The penthouse security floor was not on any public listing for the Ritz-Carlton. It didn't appear on floor directories. It didn't exist in elevator programming accessible to regular guests. It was reached through a service corridor on the 41st floor using a keycard that only 6 people in Chicago carried. Zion didn't know that until he was standing in it. The suite was clean, cold, the kind of space designed for function rather than comfort. 3 separate entrances, reinforced doors, blackout shades already drawn. A security feed covering 12 camera angles played on a flat panel near the kitchen. He had been brought here in 12 minutes. His phone had been handed to a tech who checked it for tracking devices. 2 were found. 1 in the case. 1 underneath the battery. Both placed within the last 72 hours. Zion sat with that information for a long moment in the back of the armored vehicle on the way over. Someone had been inside his apartment. Had handled his phone. Had put professional tracking hardware on a man they already knew was connected to the Romano pack. That was planned. That was patient. That was a level of organization that does not come from amateurs. Kalen confirmed what Zion already suspected. This isn't opportunistic. Whoever sent that team has been building toward this. He set his tablet on the kitchen counter. Pulled up a file. Dr. Selvara Nix. A face appeared on the screen. Late 40s. Sharp eyes. The kind of professional photograph that gets taken when someone wants to look credible to investors. Lead genetic researcher. Genesis Biotech. The same company whose gala Zion had worked 4 years and 7 months ago. She's been tracking this since before the boys were born, Kalen said. Varric stood near the window, not looking out, just standing, processing. Ravik sat across from Zion at the kitchen table. This was new. Ravik Romano did not sit across tables from people. He stood. He moved. He controlled rooms by occupying them. He was sitting now, elbows on the table, eyes on Zion. What did you know about Genesis before the gala? Ravik asked. Nothing. I was a vendor coordinator. I managed arrivals and catering schedules. I had no idea what they were researching. But afterward, Zion exhaled. After the boys were born, I hired a private investigator. Took me 8 months to save enough. The report came back clean on the surface. Genesis Foundation, charity work, medical research grants. He paused. But the investigator found the HVAC access logs. 2 technicians. A sublevel entry at 7:48 that night. And a sealed internal report from 3 months after the gala that Genesis never disclosed publicly. Kalen went still. You have the report. I have a summary. The investigator couldn't pull the full document. What does the summary say? That the gala event produced 3 viable alpha-omega pairings. That biological samples were collected from the medical suite. Zion stopped, looked at the table. That gestational confirmation was achieved in at least one case. The room held that for a moment. One case, Varric said. You. Yes. Ravik's hands were flat on the table. Very still. The stillness of a man who is not going to let what he feels right now move through his body until he has the full picture. What did she want the children for? He said. Zion looked at him. The report called them assets. Biologically optimized alpha heirs. Born from 3 dominant bloodlines and a single omega carrier. He kept his voice flat. Clinical. Because clinical was the only way to say it out loud without falling apart. She wasn't trying to create a family. She was trying to create something she could study. Or use. Or sell to the highest bidder in whatever market pays for that kind of. Enough. Ravik's voice was quiet. Hard. I understand. He looked at his brothers. Kalen was already on his phone, moving fast. Varric had turned fully away from the window and was looking at the camera feed. Specifically the entrance footage. Specifically a still image of the parking garage attack. Then Kalen checked his phone. His face changed. Drained is the right word for it. Color. Gone. He turned the screen toward Ravik. A message. Clean. Formal. No sender identification. Return the triplets to Genesis Biotech within 72 hours. 6 words. And a countdown already running in the corner of the screen. Zion read it, then looked up at Ravik. Because 72 hours is not a deadline. It is a threat. And whoever sent it already knew exactly where they were. The boys arrived at 11:14 p.m. A member of Zion's neighbor network, a woman named Deja who had been watching the boys since they were 18 months old and who asked no questions when Zion texted her a single coded word, had them ready at the door before the Romano car even pulled up. Ryden walked out first. He always walked out first. He looked at the vehicle, looked at the men standing near it, looked at Zion standing in the doorway of it. 4 years old and already doing threat assessment. Solon came out second. Coat buttoned correctly. Backpack on. He looked at Ryden, then at the men, then at Zion, and made the calculation in about 3 seconds. Cairo came out last because he had to be redirected from trying to bring a toy truck that did not fit in his coat pocket. The drive was quiet. Zion sat between Ryden and Solon. Cairo was on his lap before anyone said otherwise. The 3 Romano brothers were in the forward seats. Nobody spoke for 6 minutes. Then Cairo turned around and looked directly at Varric, completely without fear. Your car is very big, Cairo said. Varric blinked. It is, he said. Does it go fast? Yes. Cairo processed this, turned back around. Satisfied. That was Cairo. The penthouse suite had 4 rooms off the main living area. Zion got the boys settled into the largest of them. Shoes off. Coats hung. The travel versions of their bedtime things pulled from the overnight bag Deja had packed. Cairo was asleep before the lights went fully down. Solon watched Zion's face for a long moment before closing his eyes. Raiden took longer. "Papa," he said quietly in the dark. "Yeah. Those men. I know them. From work." "Yes." Raiden was quiet. Then, "Are they the ones from your phone?" Zion breathed through it. "Get some sleep, Ree." Raiden looked at the ceiling. Then his eyes closed. In the main room, Kalen had assembled everything. All of it. The Genesis Foundation financials going back 9 years. Dr. Selvara Nix's published research. Her unpublished internal filings obtained through sources Zion chose not to ask about. The HVAC maintenance logs from the gala venue. The sealed gestational report. The 2 tracking devices from Zion's phone. Satellite imaging of a Genesis facility 40 minutes outside the city. Currently active. Currently staffed. Currently generating heat signatures consistent with full laboratory operation at 11 in the evening. "She's been running this for over a decade," Kalen said. His voice carried the specific flatness of a person who has been angry for long enough that the anger has calcified into function. The gala was not the first event. There are 5 others across 3 cities over the last 11 years. Different venues. Different organizations used as cover. Always the same internal team. He paused. Always the same objective. Ravik stood near the kitchen. Arms crossed. "How many children?" "Unknown." She was careful. "Most records are off-system." Varric was reading something on a separate device. He didn't look up. "She filed a genetic patent 4 years ago under a subsidiary name. The filing describes a biological profile consistent with triplet alpha offspring from a multi-dominant bloodline pairing." He looked up. She already knew the boys existed. She's had this case open since before they were born. The room absorbed that. Zion stood near the hallway that led to the bedroom where his boys were sleeping. He thought about Raiden at the door of every room he entered. Solon taking apart problems before breakfast. Cairo launching off the top bunk and laughing. "She called them assets," Zion said. No one answered, because there was nothing to add to that. Ravik turned. "She is not getting near them." His voice carried something absolute in it. Not a decision being made. A decision already made and now being stated for the record. "We end this. Her access. Her research. Her reach into whatever network funded this operation." He looked at Kalen. "Every resource." Kalen nodded. Then his phone lit up. He read the screen. Passed it to Ravik without comment. Ravik read it. His face went still. A second message. This one not about the children. This one containing something else. DNA confirmation results. Already completed. Already submitted to an undisclosed database. And a note underneath. "The world doesn't need to know what your children are. But it will unless you comply." Ravik set the phone down. Looked at the hallway. At the door behind which 3 4-year-old boys were sleeping in a city that just decided they were leverage. And then he said something that Zion did not expect. "Tell me something about them." A pause. "Something true. Not the biology. Not the timeline." He looked at Zion directly. "Tell me who they are." Zion stood there for a moment. Then he sat down. And for the first time in 4 years, he talked about his boys to someone who had a reason to listen. Morning came the way it always did with 3 4-year-olds. Without permission. Cairo woke first and immediately located the kitchen. By the time Zion caught up, he was standing on a chair attempting to open a cabinet he had no business being near. Solon was already seated at the kitchen island with his backpack still on, looking at the city through the floor-to-ceiling windows like he was studying it for a test. Raiden stood in the hallway entrance, still, watching. Ravik was already awake. He had been awake for most of the night. He came out of the secondary room with coffee in his hand and stopped when he saw the 3 of them arranged across the kitchen like a problem he had not finished solving. He stood there, just stood there. And something moved through his face that he did not try to hide. Cairo turned around and looked at him. Do you have food? Ravik blinked. Yes. Can I have some? Cairo, Zion said. It's fine, Ravik said. He set down his coffee and opened the refrigerator. This is important. A man who runs Chicago's underground economy and half of its legitimate infrastructure was standing in a fortified penthouse kitchen at 6:40 in the morning making food for a 4-year-old who had known him for approximately 9 hours and already felt comfortable enough to ask. That matters. Varric came out 20 minutes later and found Solon at the kitchen island with a tablet. Not playing. Reading. The display was set to a news app the security team had left open. Solon was scrolling slowly. Methodically, Varric sat down across from him. Solon looked up. You read fast, Varric said. I skipped the words I already know. Varric looked at the screen, then back at Solon. What are you looking for? Solon considered this. I want to know what kind of problem Papa is in. Varric was quiet for a moment. A big one, he said. Solon nodded. Like that was the answer he expected. Like knowing the size of the problem was at least better than not knowing. Are you going to fix it? Varric held the boy's gaze. Yes. Solon went back to reading. Kalen was the last one out. He appeared at the hallway junction with his phone and his jacket already on. He stopped when he saw Ryden still positioned at the entry to the main room. Watching, they looked at each other. Kalen moved toward the kitchen. He paused when he passed Ryden. You've been standing there a while. Ryden didn't answer. You check exits, Kalen said. Not accusing. Observing. Ryden looked up at him. Papa does it too. Kalen was quiet. Then he crouched down to eye level. That's a good habit, he said. Ryden studied him. Then moved. Went and sat at the table. Like clearance had been given. The morning moved slowly. Bath time. Breakfast. Cairo's ongoing campaign to explore every room in the suite. Solon sitting with Varric for another 40 minutes talking about things Zion could not hear clearly from across the room. Ryden eventually settling near Ravik on the couch while Ravik worked through his phone with one hand and kept the other arm extended along the back cushion behind the boy. Not touching, just present. There. Like a wall that decided to sit down. Zion watched all of it from the kitchen doorway. For people who should not exist together in any version of the last 4 years. Existing together. And it was almost something close to quiet. Almost something close to right. Then Ravik's phone rang. He looked at the screen. Stood up. Walked to the far side of the room. Answered. Zion watched his back. Watched the set of his shoulders. Watched the moment, 14 seconds into the call, when something in Ravik's posture changed. He turned around. His eyes found Zion. Then moved to the hallway. To the door where the boys had slept. Dr. Nix's voice came through the phone quiet enough that only Ravik could hear it. But the room felt it anyway, because whatever she said was enough to make Ravik. A man who does not rattle go completely still. He lowered the phone. Looked at Kalen. Kalen read his face. Crossed the room. Ravik spoke quietly. 6 words. She submitted the DNA to media outlets. A pause that filled the entire room. We have 12 hours. Varric set down his coffee. Solon looked up from the tablet. Cairo, sensing something in the air the way small alpha pups always sense something before adults want them to, climbed into Zion's arms without being asked. And Ryden, from the couch, looked directly at Ravik. Daddy. 1 word. First time. Delivered with complete certainty. Like a statement of fact. Like something Ryden had decided before anyone else in the room caught up to it. Ravik turned. Looked at the boy. And the last 4 years. All of it, the distance, the calculation, the chemical suppressants, the quiet survival in a 2-bedroom apartment 47 minutes outside a city that would have changed everything. Compressed into this one moment. This kitchen. These 3 boys. This man standing at the window holding a phone that just turned the clock down on everything. Ravik looked at Kalen. His voice was low. Final. Then we burn Genesis to the ground. And Kalen, who does not move fast for anything, was already reaching for his phone before the sentence finished. The story ends here. But the truth about what Ravik, Kalen, and Varric did in those 12 hours and what it cost them, that story is worth telling. If this moved you, if it kept you up, if you felt something in that kitchen scene, subscribe right now and turn on notifications. Every story on this channel is built to stay with you. Share this one with someone who needs a reminder that family gets built in ways nobody planned. Drop a comment below. Tell me which moment hit hardest. Was it Raiden calling him daddy? Was it Solon asking Varric if he was going to fix it? Tell me. Because your thoughts down there are what make this channel worth building. Don't miss what comes next.